everyone. I'm doing something a bit different today. It's the end of 2022 and so many cool things have happened on the podcast, so many cool moments that I thought it'd be great to just pick out some of the best. There might be some people that maybe you don't know, but this is just a great chance to get to know some new folks. And of course, if you do know some of these people, then hopefully you'll enjoy those bits too. I started the podcast with 0 followers and now it's somewhere in the region of sort of 1,500 across every platform. So thank you for checking out, listening, sharing, whatever, all of that. I've got loads of cool plans for 2023, some great guests that will be airing, some I've already filmed with, some that I plan to. And yeah, loads of cool stuff planned. So I'm not going to spend ages ranting. I just want to say thank you again for sticking around. One more thing is that I'm planning to launch a Patreon. Obviously, I don't really get paid for this at all, and I'd like to start growing the platform and putting some more money into it. So if anyone's feeling kind, if you enjoy what I do, I will be setting that up very shortly. If it might even be out already by the time you listen to this, probably not. So yeah, send me a message on Instagram or something if you feel like you're interested in that, because even if I can just get 10 to 20 patrons at £3 a month, that's about $4, it would just make a small difference to me each month. So if you consider that, I'd really appreciate it. But without further ado, here are some of my favourite moments from the podcast this year, not just ever. So these are in no particular order. This first one is from Ryan Roxie discussing the most famous person he's ever peed next to.
I've actually had some really good luck of peeing next to some favorite people, because for guys, girls can't do that, and I feel bad for them because they can't just really pee in public next to someone. Maybe they can go in a stall afterwards, but guys, for us, when we go in the trough, you know, who's the most famous person you've ever peed next to?
I don't think I've peed next to anyone famous.
What?
Well,
you got to experience life. I'm telling you, you haven't started living. So you know what? And you have so much life to live.
You say I've got to experience life, but that means I've got to go out of my way to pee in certain places just for the sake of peeing next to famous people now. It's a weird. You're right.
Problem. It'll happen serendipitously.
There we go.
Yeah. And then we had to come back to that word. But no, probably the most famous person I ever peed next to was Charlie Watts. Or, you know, and that was kind of cool. And another one was Tommy Lee. So I guess that's topical because everyone's, you know, talking about Tommy Lee's thing. And then my third name drop and last one, I promise you folks, of the people that I have peed next to was Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner is, for those of you that have no idea, don't worry, he's not alive anymore or he would be canceled. But he is the godfather of Playboy magazine. So
cool. This next one is from Gabe Mangold. He talks about his sort of nomadic lifestyle, and I just found it super inspiring, super interesting, very insightful, and the ability to just let go of stuff like that and just live with what you really need in life is just so important, I think. Here you go.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, East Coast, Midwest part of the United States. And I moved to Taos, New Mexico. It's this very tiny, happy mountain town, northern New Mexico, to build these houses called earthships. They're like off-grid sustainable housing structures because I had a general interest in that kind of building and construction. And I'd never like really camped like long-term or like really been out west at all, really. I pretty much stayed home, you know, for most of my life, except from vacations. And I just fell in love like with the desert. And I had some friends out there that were living out of their, you know, Subarus and Toyotas, dirt bagging as we call it out here. And I was like, whoa, that's like really, really cool. I want to do that now. And so I had a Subaru Forester. So I like built like a little bed in it and had all my camp gear and all my clothes and everything I needed, and lived out of that for like 5 months in New Mexico and California, and just totally fell in love with the lifestyle. And kind of like once you get rid of everything that you have in a house, and you realize that you don't need any of it really, at least for me. Some people need larger things depending on what you do in life. If you're a drummer, unfortunately, you need a house or a place to play your drums. I can't fit a drum set in here.
You pick the instrument, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, for anyone, you'll like, once you get rid of everything that you have and you are just down to your bare necessities, you'll quickly realize that you don't really need much more than that. And I just found beauty and love the simplification of things. I like being able to travel, like, you know, whenever I wanted, or if I just wanted to pick up and go, I could. Fortunately, in America, it's very easy to do that out west because there's so much public land and space and stuff like that, and just open land in general. And so I did that for a bit, moved back home for a little bit, and then built this trailer rig because I wanted, to build a studio and have a little more space for everything that I needed. I wish I didn't need this much space in this big old heavy trailer, but this is like the minimum that I need to do what I do in life. And I love it. And there's no real plans on going back to like a normal life, quote unquote normal life. This is normal for me, by now, but no plans on going back to like a standard house or apartment anytime soon.
No, I think it's awesome because it's like I'm currently sat here. I moved into this flat maybe like 6 months ago, and I've been kind of kitting it out with like all the things that I like and trying to, thinking like, I'm thinking like, what chair do I want it there, or what what things do I want in my kitchen, and like I like it because it becomes a bit of an extension of your personality to some extent.
Yes,
but equally, I'm just thinking like, what is funny because it's always kind of a funny coincidence because when I was thinking about this, I was like, how much do I need that chair there though? As much as I want it there, it's a bit of an irrelevant. I don't know why I picked the chair. It's just anything in the flat beyond the musical things I'm doing. I kind of think like, why do I need that? Is it that I need it, or do I want it? I mean, in theory, it doesn't need to be there. I'm not going to sit on it probably. I just want it for like decoration. And I kind of think like it doesn't serve any. It's like, for example, I can see you've got some things up on the wall that look like they sort of part of something for like what they call like souvenirs and
the souvenirs and trinkets and mementos. Everything that's in here is I've like just picked up over travels in life. So,
and I see the importance of that, but like I do kind of sometimes think like life would be a lot simpler if I didn't have this phone or even the laptop. There's some great things because I wouldn't be able to talk to you without the laptop, for example. But I do think there's a real calling, and I think some people maybe don't even know that they need it. A calling for like a simplification in life, like you said. Have you found that's affected your kind of how you? So this is a bit of a. I feel like I'm kind of derailing this a bit myself, which is not great given I'm the one kind of hosting this. But I found that like my phone and technology and everything, it feels like it's infiltrated my brain a little bit. I pick up my phone more than I really would like to, and there are things that I do around the house, like I think little things that you just do that you don't need to do, and I feel like a lot of things have invaded my mental processes. Have you found that they've changed sort of the way you process things and the way you write music, for example? Has that changed in the time that you've moved away from conventional kind of living?
As far as like how like my creative process works and my workflow and life flow, whatever you want to call it, I can't say it's like drastically changed too much because so people say, you've got the life, you can do whatever you want, you can hang out here, you can go there, if only I could do that, or I guess my point is people say, if I was there I could do this, if A then B, and I don't like that because that implies that your happiness is a destination, and I don't like that. Because that means that, I have to go here or buy this or do this so I can live my life. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because happiness and fulfillment in your life is always inside you at the end of the day for everyone.
All right. So now next one's with Dan Tompkins talking about success.
I used to have a very different definition of success. Success to me was, actually, I take that back. I didn't really know what success was when I first started doing music. Now it's changed quite a lot. Success to me is being able to live a free-ish lifestyle. It's not about the financial gains. It's more about how much time you can free up for yourself and your family. So for me at the minute, I think I'm relatively successful in that respect because I've managed to build myself into a place where I can do pretty much what I like. Which is brilliant. I mean, the struggle to get here is a different story, but I think success is about time rather than money.
Wicked. So the next one is from Sophie Burrell, one of the two. she talks about identity and sort of finding her own place as a musician. I think this is super poignant for anyone, particularly at my kind of age. I'm 25. I feel like at this age it's difficult to find where you feel like you should be as a musician. So yeah, I can totally relate to this next one.
It actually bears a heavy weight on my shoulders all the time, and I feel I've been having an identity crisis for about, I don't know how many years, like since I was 17, I would say. Because I joined the last band I was in when I was 17, and it was like great fun, not really the genres I was listening to. So at that point I was actually like Mastodon or Die, Alter Bridge or Die, like All I Want Is Metal, blah, 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 blah. I still love all of those bands, but this band was more like 80s inspired stuff. So it wasn't my genres at all, but I joined for the experience, and I'm glad I did because I've got to play so many shows and stuff. But to be taken at such a time where you're figuring yourself out and your identity, and then put into something where you have to become a role, I think that's actually, it's made things difficult for me because I still haven't worked myself out yet. And until I release my own music and like say something for myself and how I am and how I write and everything, like I don't think that pressure is gonna go away. So I basically am now just trying to get music out as soon as possible so that I can be like, oh, now everyone knows who I actually am, and people can I don't know, probably no one is being like, oh, I reckon she's doing this, blah blah blah. But at the same time, it's like I feel like at that point I can breathe like a sigh of relief, because I'm like, oh, now they actually know kind of what I am about, and I can hopefully then settle into this identity, like who I really am. Because until that point, like until I release my own music, people are just going off of what covers I play, or the band I was previously in. Like there isn't a lot. It's all still quite fresh and mysterious. Really, I'm at the beginning of my career. So I'm just very excited to finally be like, hello, I'm Sophie, and this is what I'm actually about, kind of thing. All right, this next one is from the podcast that I've laughed at the most. I was in tears laughing with Jason Evans from Ingested. I was going to include the bit where I was in tears laughing, but it's not particularly. You can go and check it out. It's not very, not safe for work is how I would describe that conversation. But this one's quite funny, so enjoy.
When you go over to America, it's these things called merch cuts, which are at even the smallest venues.
Oh man.
Which is just a joke, right? It's an absolute fucking joke, because there's nowhere else that does this, unless it's like I said, like fucking big ass venues with their own staff and merch vendors and shit, which is, if you're selling our merch and you're counting it all and you're doing all that, that's fine. Like take a cut. That's fine. I'm not going to begrudge that. Do you know what I mean? You're doing work. Gives us a night off as well. But if it's a fucking dive bar venue in the arsehole of nowhere in America, and you're not selling our merch for us, you want me to count all of our merch and then give you the numbers and then sell it all and then count it all again at the end of the night and then give you a percentage of our fucking money when you've put absolutely nothing into it. You can suck my dick. Like, you can suck my dick, like, from the hilt to the fucking tip. You can suck my dick. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, they'll fucking come to me at the end of the show, and I'll just be like, you can fuck off. Oh, but I don't care. I don't care.
Have you run into sort of arguments and stuff?
Yeah, like nearly every show.
Well, credit to you.
Get like a fucking $1 or maximum. If they go, oh, well, it's in the contract, I'll go, yeah, here's $10 then. Off you fuck.
I don't blame you. It's a shitty thing. I mean, like,
it's awful. Because like the other thing as well is we're not fucking Metallica. Do you know what I mean? We're not making fucking like hundreds of thousands. Like, it's not like that. Do you know what I mean? We're playing like to fucking 200, 300 people a night. And this is our wage. This is our living wage that we're taking home. Do you know what I mean? This isn't like, we're not rolling in it.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? If we were doing it for the money, then fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? That would be a sad thing. Like, it's death metal. Like, we're doing it because we love it. Like, and we can't do anything else. We're not built to do anything else. But it's like some shows, it's like, if you were to give them the 20% that they want of your merch, you'd be giving them back more money than they would be paying you on a guarantee. So it's like, it's as if you're paying them for the privilege of filling up their venue for the night for them. And they're making an insane amount of money on the bar and stuff that we don't get. We don't get any part of that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, so if they're going to charge for merch, you should be like, oh, so all those drinks we sold, can we?
Yeah. So can I get 10% of the bar then?
Yeah.
It's fucking disgusting. It's fucking extortion, basically.
I get the principle. It's, you know, ultimately you're selling stuff on their property. So, I mean, technically they can say that, but it's like, well, there's no balance in that. Like, yeah, you know, it's like technically, yeah, they can.
Yeah, but also their venue wouldn't be full and they wouldn't be making loads of money on the bar if we weren't there.
Yeah.
So it's like, your venue wouldn't be open tonight if we weren't there, or it might be open and it'll be a fucking dive bar night or a fucking shitty club night, and you'd have about 30 people in there. But it's fucking sold out. It's fucking 350 people in here, and the bar's busy all night. And that's because of the band that's playing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And now you're going to come and take some of our fucking money. Fuck you. Fuck you.
I'm just going to have to.
You can have 10 if it's in the contract. I will give you $10, and that $10 will have been resting in the crack of my arsehole for at least half an hour after the show as well. So it's fucking sweaty and it stinks and it's damp and it's moist, and you can have that.
Well, with the exchange rate, that's turning into more and more dollars. Like, things are going. I wouldn't guarantee it. That'll be like 800 quid in not long. If you like that, go and check out the full conversation because it was honestly hilarious and very insightful too. So yeah. Next one is Simon Dobson. He's I've actually had the honour of meeting him. He's a lovely man. And I think the composer's insight into music is just that little bit different to your average musician, and I really like his next take. Enjoy.
So now I want to focus on big brushstrokes, like the light, color, and movement, and that's it. And you know how I can describe those most efficiently in art without getting bogged down in the minutiae of composition. I think because who's that? It doesn't mean anything to anybody. Like nobody really cares about it. That's the kind of music that only matters to other composers. And I think that the most important art is made for people, and I feel like that's become a thing in my head now. Like I'm much more interested in like you say, the bigger picture, like trying to use bigger brushstrokes and be more efficient in that way so that the art can mean more to more people.
Wicked. So speaking of insightful people, Dean Lamb of Archspire, super interesting guy, loads of really hot takes, like conversational points that I didn't expect I found really interesting. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but I think in all the right ways, and this just highlights that. So yeah.
We put all of our serious time towards coming up with really good music that we think is good. So we think, okay, this music's good. We're going to put all of our serious thought time into that. And then everything else that I do, I'm like, okay, well, the serious time is done. And so I'll just be a fucking idiot now because the rest of it is like, you know, I don't know. There's so many bands that come out and no disrespect to anybody that does this, but there's so many serious bands.
Yeah.
It's like, do you need another one? Do you need another serious band? We're playing such ridiculous music as it is. So why would we be like, you know, super serious, like, you know, this next song? It's like, I don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like personally. And there's some bands that it works really well for. And there's some bands that are just finding kind of what they should be like on stage or off stage or to, you know, but and for some bands, it's just, that's the genre, black metal, you know, it should be mostly like this serious sort of thing, even though, I mean, it's so goofy what they're doing, putting on, you know, corpse paint or whatever. Like, I think the dude that really nailed it is Abbott, you know, fucking, he like is like this goofy dude that looks all tough, but he's goofy as fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well that's fun. Or like,
you know, Party Cannon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I don't. I'm not super familiar, but I know the logo anyway.
Yeah. You look at these like lineups and then you just see like balloon writing. Like,
yeah.
It's amazing.
That stuff is fun. I mean, like we like to think about this is like a switch in the last 4 or 5 years of our band is we like to think about our band coming to your town to play a show as like a party. It's like, okay, we're gonna make the coolest party. Let's make this whole thing a party. So if it's around Christmas time, it's a Christmas party. Let's have fun. Let's have a fun time. You know, let's make dumb shit on stage. Let's say dumb shit. Like, let's hang out with people before and after the show and not be like super serious about everything. Like on this previous tour, halfway through, or actually quite a bit earlier, somebody found like really funny looking swim shorts at Walmart and we're like, okay, well, let's wear those on stage. And then I was like, okay, I'll wear some swim shorts on stage for a night because it's going to be so hot or whatever. And then we wear them the next night and the next night. And then we're like, we're just wearing them every single night. Every single night. What's that?
Is this us now?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, yeah. And like our vocalists just started wearing weirder and weirder shit as the tour went on. And it's like, this is a kind of fun that we want. Like, we don't want to go on stage and be like, all black, tough guy. Here's, this is us. This is, because it's not us, right? And halfway through the tour, we played a show, and every show of the tour was awesome. Every single one was awesome. But there was a show that was considered the worst show of the tour, and that's just because it was the least attended or whatever it was. It was still a fun time. Everybody that came out was like so amazing. But yeah, we just had one show. It's inevitable because not every show can be the best show of your band's career, obviously. So he decided to bust out this bit that he had where it's called Bird Facts. So Bird Facts on stage. So as a band, we made car fresheners, like air fresheners. They say Stay Tech, and they're just like, they smell really bad actually. So sorry to anybody to bother them, but they're just like, it says Archspire and it's a car freshener on the inside. It says Stay Tech. So he had a whole bunch of them in a binder and on stage, and on the binder he wrote important business documents, but it's all spelled wrong, like he's a fucking idiot. And he opens it up and it's like all this loose leaf paper, and in it he printed out pictures of birds, and he selected one bird for that show, and it was the yellow warbler. And so we played 2 songs, and then he's like, okay, bird facts, I'm gonna give a free air freshener to those who know what the mating cycle of a yellow warbler is.
Sounding very Monty Python.
I mean, so and he didn't say what band we were. He didn't say thank you for coming to the show. He didn't mention who anybody else on the tour package was. All he did was say Bird Facts, and it fucking did really well as a bit. Like, people in the audience really liked it. And that's the kind of stuff that I like. It's like, well, that's funny because you can watch us on stage all like dying laughing because it's, let's say he says a joke and no one laughs. I mean, that makes me laugh so much harder. Like, if he says a joke and it fucking bombs, just absolute crickets, it's like, that's my thing, So that kind of stuff is really fun. And so we'll follow that up with 350 BPM extreme technical death metal. And then the song will be over, and then he's like, how many eggs does a yellow warbler lay? I mean, it's like so the opposite ends of the spectrum that I think that the juxtaposition of those two things, I think people find
how seriously
captivating.
you take your bird facts.
Well, we all learned a lot. I think 2 to 3 eggs is the answer to that question. So, I mean, I love birds. We all love birds. Toby doesn't like birds with long legs, but I don't know why. So in Australia, he was in pain. He just hated every second. He was like, oh my God, birds with big long legs freak me out. I'm like, well, there's a lot of them here. So, but just shit like that, you stop trying to be, after 12, 13 years in a band, you stop trying to be like tough guy, prove it to everybody that you can play. It's like, no, we could play. Well, just now we're going to make it a fun time. And that's what we've been trying to push a lot.
There we go. Next one's with Sped, Spedding. I don't actually know his real name, but anyway, maybe that is. I don't know. It's a pretty cool name. He's just talking about doing what you're passionate about. It's pretty simple, but it's an important point, and he makes it really clearly and really well.
Do what you love and put out content that you really enjoy playing with your music, crafting, whatever you're doing, and just find the best way to do that, because that's what you want to do. And if it's not what's immediately successful, that's why the guys from Stranger Things got turned down 13 times before it got made into the Netflix show. That's why Beatles and Queen didn't get the record label immediately. Like, literally, if you compromise a little bit on, to grow your audience, that's fine. But I wouldn't throw your passions right out the window or put them completely aside just to get to a number of people that are interested, because you want people to be interested in the true reason you started the podcast, or the true reason you've started whatever you're doing, who's listening, because I know even if you didn't have end up with millions of views or this, that, and the other, you'd still be happier with doing what you enjoy every day rather than something you don't, because that's what's most important, I would say.
Nice. Cool. So this next clip is from my first ever repeat guest, but this is actually from his first episode. This is Rudy Ayoub attempting to roast my old band.
You guys got roasted good.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, you're right. You didn't. You guys were good.
I was gonna say, non-roast aside, without, and this isn't me fishing for compliments, I was gonna ask what you thought, if you remembered, to be fair, because I didn't know. I guess you see a lot of videos.
This is a confession.
Oh, really?
After roasting you guys for the first time, maybe the second time,
yeah,
I came back and listened to your music a couple more times, and I was like, you know what, this is fucking catchy, bro. What am I gonna do about it? Just gonna listen to it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, man.
Seeing as we're on the comedic ones, Mike Dawes' whole take on the 100 duck-sized horses. Yeah, 100 duck-sized horses versus 100 horse-sized ducks. I got that wrong in the video. Again, had me cracking up, so enjoy. Would you rather fight 100 horse-sized ducks or one duck-sized horse? Wait, did I get the right one?
It's a question as old as time, and it's 100%, 100% duck-sized horses. Always.
That's what I said. I feel like you can wade through them and just...
Could you conceptualize the size of a beak on a horse-sized duck? It would be an impenetrable fortress of pain.
And duckness.
Weaponry, yeah, and duckness, absolutely.
Lots of ducking around.
Quacking your bones in twain.
I feel like you've answered this question before.
Yeah, no, I have answered it before. I mean, it's because of ducks are very small, and I have boots with. I just wear boots with points on, or steel toe-capped boots or something. Assuming that was an option as part of the narrative, and just start wailing, just start booting them. Like in Jack Black in Anchorman when he kicks the dog off the bridge, that kind of thing. Just boot one after the other. I don't know if you've done 100, if you played football at all, but just kicking a ball 100 times. Not a big deal.
Yeah, I think
although they are horses, they would be fast. But I mean, if they're fast, then they're either going to be in your area or not. It's not like you're going to waste a kick. They're either going to be there or not that fast. Not faster than a human foot.
But the question is, I feel like horses, they've got a bit of a bite to them and a kick, so they might just wear you.
Yeah, but the size of a duck, the mouth would be inconsequential.
Yeah, but think about all that pressure in a tiny hoof,
Okay, well that's a different question.
Might be breaking your legs, and then you're on the floor, and then
if you're talking about it like that, that would no. But by that definition, when you kick the duck-sized horse, you'd stub your toe because it would be like kicking the mass of a full-sized horse. That's a whole different question.
Oh yeah. Well, for the next hour,
Exactly.
The anatomy of ducks and horses.
Well, it's physics, isn't it? Yeah. So you got to think these things through, Joe.
I think you've just offended.
You can't just pull elements of
duckery,
mechanics, yeah,
horsery, duckery, yeah. Well, this is the problem whenever I get introduced with a question such as that one, because there's no neat way of tying it into any relevant type of conversation that you could possibly have.
Unless it was a concept album about ducks or horses, which there is not.
Oh, that was my next question.
Right, I'm sorry.
Any other animals in the offing?
Sorry, Joe. No, I'm afraid not. Although my girlfriend has a tiny dog, a little Chihuahua, which wears a bow tie. So there's nothing about that to do with music at all. But there you go. So I have been seen in Long Island, New York, walking a Chihuahua, which is a sight to behold because I'm quite a tall boy and the Chihuahua is quite a tiny boy. So there you go.
Would you rather fight? Yeah.
No comment.
Hilarious, right? This next one's from Jacob Umansky. super talented player. Again, really insightful. Just giving his take on what makes instrumental music work. And I think it's important because there are a lot of instrumental musicians out there that maybe don't think about composition in the way they should, in my opinion. So yeah, check it out.
You know, there's a lot of bands who do that whole like proggy for the sake of being proggy kind of thing, and there's a time and a place for that. But I think, you know, like for example, bands like Intervals. Again, I don't write the music. Aaron writes it and then sends it to me, and I, you know, write all the cool bass stuff. But so bands like Intervals, Polyphia, and even Animals as Leaders, I think a lot of it has to do with the songwriting and like composing the melodies. Because, you know, if you dissect an Intervals tune, it's essentially just like kind of a song that you'll hear on the radio. You know, it's got a main riff, a verse, a chorus, you know, second, you know, goes back to the riff, you know, same. So it's a very, the songs are complex, you know, in terms of, you know, we add some really cool harmony and stuff like that. But the way I like to describe it to a lot of my students who want to talk about composition is that it's essentially just a pop song in disguise. And I think, you know, with Aaron and, you know, guys in that realm like Tim from Polyphia or, you know, I don't want to say Animals as Leaders because their stuff is a bit more virtuosic in terms of, you know, and a bit more progressive than us, I guess, in terms of structure. But yeah, I think, you know, Aaron does the job of serving the song well as like a vocalist would. You know what I mean? Where a lot of these melodies are reoccurring. And I think that we'll do, you know, we have a certain amount of ideas. Like we'll have like maybe one or two motifs, right? That, and then we kind of expand that. And then that becomes the song. So I think, you know, you have to be tasteful with the amount of information that you introduce into a song. And, you know, that way, you know, you can disguise all these different ideas and motifs, but it's really not that much information going into a song. You don't want to overload the listener because it's already, the music is complex enough itself. So I think that's why, I think a lot of that is why, you know, this modern progressive music has, you know, an appeal, is because it's not, you know, a lot of it's not like super unheard of to, you know, it's just like we're packaging it a bit differently.
So the next one's with Jamie Slays. Talking about James Hetfield and just your idols. I've known Jamie for a little while and we get on really well. And I loved our conversation, and he's obviously a massive James Hetfield fan, and we discussed the whole thing about James Hetfield sort of having a bit of a breakdown on stage, a bit of a moment, and just how important it was that he did that and that people saw it and that he was just honest about having a hard time. I think that's really important. So, yeah. What I thought was really poignant was James Hetfield sort of opening up. I saw you shared that as well. The about him sort of talking about. I think it's really important because people, especially, you know, if you and I think what was really like another thing that was really good was actually, I don't know if you watched the movie The Dirt, and that might not be the first thing you think of when you think of like mental health and all these things, but it highlighted some really awful things about those people, and I think it's good to just, I'm not saying James Hetfield's awful, like, that's a different kind of thing, but it's good to actually just bring in the humanity and understand that like these people that have the thing that you might think you want, you know, the fame, the success, they still have their issues and things that they struggle to. I mean, James Hetfield's been in rehab how many times now? Like,
yeah, definitely. Like literally, even in the last 2 years or so, I think, when we saw them play Birmingham, and then we saw them the year after play Twickenham, and it was like the same tour. Like they were on like a tour for 3 years or something. The Worldwide, I think it was the Hardwired tour of like the whole world. Well, I think it was called Worldwide. And yeah, he went to rehab like straight after. But then you go like, well, that's understandable. He's just been on tour for 3 years. Like he hasn't seen his family really for longer than 2 days. I think they had like Thanksgiving off or something. But yeah, that thing like broke me a little bit, like seeing the James Hetfield stuff, because I'm like, he is like literally the best thing about metal ever. For me specifically, he's like God. Like he's literally like every guitarist who I like that has inspired me, like Josh Middleton from Silosis, specifically Silosis, Mick Thompson, Matt Hafey, Lamb of God, Metallica, like they all would go, well, I learned Master Puppets and that made me better at downpicking. Oh, I learned this and it made me better at Battery and this, and it's like everyone is linked back to Metallica. And it is, like you said, it's humbling almost to see that everyone has problems. And like, I think we live in a society now where we kind of idolize celebrities as being these like humans that are different to us. Like it always makes me laugh when people who do like impressions of people. I'm like, I love it. I think that's the best thing ever. But I'm like, isn't it weird that that's just a person? Like when they impersonate Johnny Depp, he's just a guy. And when they impersonate, I don't know, Gordon Ramsay, he's just a guy who talks that way. Like anyone can impersonate anyone. But yeah, when James Hetfield did the like whole breakdown on stage thing, I was literally like, oh my God, like literally sat there with like little tears in my eyes. Like this is one, it made me feel sad because it means that he's sad. But two, weirdly, I think it's also because he looks like my dad, or like my dad looks like him.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'll send you a picture after, or we can like put it in the thumbnail or something. But my dad, I think he looks a lot like him. So it was almost like seeing my dad break down and be emotional on stage, because he's not the most, like most dads aren't very emotional as it is. So I was a bit like, oh, so sad. But yeah, I think he's great. Like there was a clip of him recently with Howard Stern where they have like Elton John on FaceTime or something.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, it's nothing else matters. It's one of the best songs ever written. And James is like, oh, like literally like almost falls off his chair, because he's like, Elton John is one of the best songwriters ever. And then he's saying that one of the songs I wrote when I was like 24 or something is one of the best songs ever written. And he's like, Jesus Christ. But even that in itself is humbling to show that they have idols also. Like they have people that they idolize. And Josh's Middleton said on his Twitch, because me and Jack frequent that a lot as well, so being fanboys, that we're like, oh, have you met James? And he was like, I've been around him. Like I've been at like, it was Sonosphere and Soundwave. Soundwave is one in Australia, isn't it? And
I don't know.
He said Metallica always put on a barbecue for all the like road crew and the bands. They don't let any kind of anyone else in. And then he was like, he was there, and I like ran away because I didn't want to speak to him, because it's almost like don't meet your heroes. But then another time he was on stage, side stage, watching Ghost, I think, and James Hetfield just turns up next to him like eating a salad, and then he's like, oh my god, it's James. And he was like, can I have a picture? And he was like, okay. And apparently James famously doesn't really like having photos taken. And then as soon as he did it, like everyone noticed he was there, and then ran over and wanted to have photos with him. And he was like, I feel really bad now. But
yeah,
I mean, like that's just going to happen. But even he was like, I was in, talking distance of him, and even I didn't want to say anything. So it's almost a bit like, oh my god, like
when was that of interest?
I think that was Sonosphere, like when it was a festival, which obviously isn't anymore. And they were both playing obviously on the same stage, or once you're on the bill, I guess you can stand side stage. But
so I thought you said when you were in talking distance of him. Sorry.
Oh Jesus Christ! No, I wish that would be the podcast headline. Jamie Slays was stood next to James Hetfield. But no, that was Josh. Yeah, that's the 2 times Josh has met him, and the 1 time I think he said he regretted it, because he was like, I felt really bad then, because like other people wanted selfies with him, and then he was a bit like, oh, thanks a lot. But yeah, if I ever met him, I'd probably cry or like be like, you're my favorite person ever. But you must get that all the time, and that's the thing that's humbling to him as well, because like I said, I don't know if you see any of their videos that they post often, but he gave a fan a guitar the other day just because, like, here you go. He just like gave it to them. He was like a 10-year-old kid, like going mental. But yeah, like you said, that makes it real, and it's similar to things. So I watched The Dirt and I didn't really like it. I've read the book, and the book's amazing, but I didn't really think the TV show was that good, or the film. If it was a film, wasn't it? I think the Pam and Tommy one was better.
Kind of a docu.
Yeah,
well, not docu.
Yeah, the Pam and Tommy one was better. I think they should have done.
Okay.
The Dirt would have been better, a bit more like that. But I always talk to people who like, I don't know if you get it as well, but you always have like kids being like, oh, how do I get in the record label, or how do I do this? And it's like, just because you see, like you said at the beginning, just because you see the people that you idolize getting these things doesn't mean that you should get them, and it doesn't mean that if you get it, it will answer all your questions as well. Because there's horror stories, and I think you talked about it with Goonsy, like the record label they used to be on, which I won't mention because I know that he doesn't mention it, because of the ongoing court case and stuff. But they were on this label, and my friend's band Jesse was in a band called All Guns Blazing, which was also on the same label. And it was like you were signed into this contract of hell, and it was like you had to record in their studio, and it had to be mixed and mastered by them, and you owed them loads of money, and they almost used it like a pyramid scheme to fund the bigger bands that were at the top. And then it's like, do you want that? Probably not. So maybe you should have read the contract. Like even my friend Jesse said, like, Believe from Within almost like pioneered getting everyone out of that label, because they left it and I think went to Century Media, and that was like a lawsuit that then the guy who ran the label kind of fled and went away, and that meant that all the contracts he had just like dissipated. So all the bands that were on there that maybe owed him loads of money then no longer did. So that's the thing. It's like maybe in this day and age as well, with things like DistroKid and CD Baby and like all these ways where you can YouTube and Instagram and TikTok where you can actually put out your own music. Do you need to be on a label? Do you need to be with a distributor? Like a lot of it can now be DIY. And I think that's the thing that people still think, oh, I need to go back to the old way and get signed. But even if you are thinking that those bands would tour the circuit. So really, if you're going to do that, play loads of shows, get recognized by a label, and then you'll get picked up as someone who's like done it on their own.
Important stuff. So this next one is from my first ever release, although it wasn't the first one I filmed, which is with George Lever. Another guy with lots of interesting takes. He's talking about kind of building a world per band with his production and how it's important that each band has their own kind of world, musical world to live in. Here you go.
I would like to try and build a world per band for them to exist in. And then hopefully, if that's successful, over time, evolve that environment with them over numbers of records.
I like the way you sort of phrased it, having a different world for each band to exist in. What if someone goes along and goes, can I have a bit of that world, please? And
doesn't happen.
No,
because it's like going, you can ask for it, but your version, this is how it works. How that person would look at something that I've already made may actually not be how I saw what I was making with that band. So they can ask for it, but they're not asking for what I made for that band. They're asking for their interpretation of it and how they relate to it. So I can say, yeah, but they're still not really getting that thing. They're getting their color of it.
So the longest podcast I ever filmed, I think, goes to Adam D'Amico, whose clip is next. He's a big advocate of mental health, talking about it, all that stuff. And he kind of shares a few of his own sort of personal struggles in the podcast. It's about 100 minutes long. I think I filmed one slightly longer one with Chris from Kiesel Guitars. But yeah, I just really admired how open he was. And we sat and chatted for probably the best part of another hour after the podcast stopped airing, just about life. And the fact he just took the time to talk to me just meant a lot. Obviously, Lorna Shore have absolutely blown up, as if they weren't already blowing up at the time, but they've really blown up since. So I'd love to chat to one of them, if not Adam again. Give one of them a shout if you want them on board.
I want to demystify what being a musician is. I think musicianship, for some reason, just feels like this, or musicians feel like this unattainable, not lifelike person, right? And I think my whole life going to shows, like, you finally see like a band that you like, and you're like, oh my god, this person's finally in front of me, and like they're mysteries to you, And I think, I guess a big part of for me was just wanting to just remove the veil, if you will. I think a lot of it is, I think a persona is very common in everyone's life. We all wear masks to some degree, so it's very easy to hide, and you could put on a mask in any sort of fashion. For me, I'm just trying to remove that and just like speak on like my experiences. And I think as a musician, another aspect of it is like you have to be vulnerable. You have to put yourself out there, and by doing it more often and having that sense of vulnerability of like writing a song, putting, aspects of yourself or your personality into it, like you have to be vulnerable. You have to show like your authentic self, and to not speak in that same way when, you're writing a song with that purpose, like it just feels like it doesn't really kind of connect to me. So for me, I was trying to do, because being a musician to me at least feels like you're very vulnerable. I think why not extend that to like speaking on it, like, and having a sense of vulnerability is not like a sense of weakness. I think displaying the stuff that like makes you human doesn't make you any less. That's just kind of where my come from is. And I think a lot of it started more frequently in the past few years with like teaching more often, because I would have students ask me about stuff, and I would just be honest. I'd be like, this song was hard to write, or this, I have my moments of ups and downs. And hearing a lot of students like come to me and having this like perspective on like guitar players or musicians or whatever, and I'm just like, do you really think that like I just sit down, write a song in an hour, and it comes out like perfectly fleshed out, and like that just means I'm a better musician than you are? Like, absolutely not. Like, I struggle the same way that anyone else does, and I just want to talk about that because like I think we all struggle in life, regardless of in the micro sense of a musician or in the macro sense. And I think speaking on it I think it becomes helpful, because I feel like it just normalizes it, it humanizes it, and it makes it feel like, oh, right, this is a person. Because I think a lot of people like talk to us or talk about us as if we're not like real, we're not there. As if like I get messages, I get stuff that's just like very, very rude, and I respond back to it. I'm just like, you wouldn't say this to anybody. So why are you just treating me as if I'm like, what gives you the right to say this? Because, I'm still a person at the end of the day. Just because I play in a band that you like or people like or whatever it may be, like, doesn't mean that like not a person just like anybody else. And I approach myself as being very humble and just being like, we're all on the same page. Like, I'm not up here and you're down here. Like, I very much look at everyone eye to eye, because when I come home from being on tour and I go to the grocery store or I go out to dinner, no one knows who the hell I am. And I try to remember that, you know, like, I'm not like, there's not a flock of people waiting for me because they know I'm going to this restaurant, or they're like, oh, he's going grocery shopping on a Sunday. No one knows that. And no one's going to, and I try to remind myself, just because in a room, people see me in a different perspective, like, I bring myself down. Like, we're still humans. We still go through stuff. We still have emotions. We still have good days, bad days. And I'd rather share that than just be like, look at me, this like mysterious, unattainable, like whatever it may be. And I just never really was interested in that. I've always found it interesting when I would hear about artists that I looked up to talking about stuff that like I dealt with, because I felt like valid in that, because I didn't feel like I was alone in dealing with struggles or dealing with things or whatever it may be. And I kind of want to offer that same perspective to other people.
Next one's from local Birmingham hero Debbie Gough. Everyone I talk to about Debbie absolutely adores her. Very talented musician. And yeah, on to big things, I think. So discussing women in metal. She had a very balanced and just interesting take on that whole situation. It's the kind of thing it's hard to find a balanced opinion on nowadays, these kind of more volatile conversations, shall we say. But I think she just makes a really interesting point, and I found it really interesting talking to her about it. So yeah.
I think there's like a very, very fine line between celebrating the fact that there is this upsurge of women and non-binary people in bands, and also novelizing the fact that uprising of different people to be in bands is you know, been so prominent. I think then it's clear to see when somebody is novelizing you, and that's when I feel most disrespected. And that would be kind of my reason for wanting to talk about it, because there are so many times where I either feel novelized or just completely disregarded, and the line between those two is, I don't know, both things I find almost
a pretty shitty pick and mix between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I know that's sometimes somebody will be like, wow, I really like your band, blah, blah, blah. And then straight to the fact that I'm a woman. And to me, they could have just left it that they're like the band. And then it turns into almost this like patronizing, oh, aren't you good for having a go at that? And it's fine now, isn't it? And I think, hey, what are you going on about, man? I don't understand. From my point of view, I'm exactly the same as my bandmates, and so is every other woman in a band. And why do you need to comment on that? But I also understand the importance of expressing that to other people, but not wanting to, just make it into a novelty or something that's uncommon to some people.
I think one of the people I admire the most in the UK metal scene is Rabea Massaad. It was so great that he came on the podcast. I've hung out with him a couple of times since, or at least once. And yeah, he's one of the most down-to-earth people, so real, just treats you like anyone else would in the best way. And I found it amazing how just open he was to just enjoying experiences and just taking them as they come. And I think it's something that we should all learn from. So yeah, have a listen.
Just focus on yourself. Crack on with that, and like just make sure that you're the best you can be for yourself. And there'll be always people better around the corner, kind of thing, or bigger or stronger or faster or smarter, whatever. Not in a negative sense. It's just the point is it's not in your control. You can't control how good someone gets at something, so just control how good you can be at something, or how positive you can be towards something. That's kind of the lesson. And
you never know what life circumstances have wound someone up to get them to where they are. People talk about like talk about like all the sort of great sports people. It's like, if you ask them what else happens in like what other things they have in life, it's like, yes, they've got all the money and fame, but they haven't always got the the social life, or you know, you hear about sort of sport, like all these sports people, and then they've been married like how many times and fallen out with people, and you're just like, you kind of think like, just because they've got a great level, like a phenomenal level of success in something that's very publicly sort of revered, I think people just assume that the rest of it's all fallen into place nicely for them. Which is it's a weird one. But do you ever find yourself getting caught up in like numbers and things? And because obviously you've got all you can see how many views you get, or is that an easy one to do?
I just don't care, and I don't mean that disrespectfully in the slightest. It's just maybe smaller lessons I've learned in the past was where I thought something might do well. So to answer that, you care about it, numbers, and then it come off not doing that well. I just thought, well, then that just means it's not in my control. Well, I just do the best I can. If it does well, cool. If not, whatever. But no, to be honest, I've never worried about money or like views or like career. I've always just, and I still do, just focus on like the shit that's exciting. Like, just makes me feel good and enjoy it. It's fun, like there are responsibilities that you get as you get older. Of course there are. But like most of the time when it comes to like career or like money or anything like that, I just don't like to think about the negative side. Like, what if this doesn't work out, or what if you run out of money, or like what if you, I don't know, whatever. I just can't be bothered to waste the energy on that kind of like headspace. I think over lockdown maybe everyone gained a bit of anxiety and a bit of that space because it was such a weird thing to happen to everyone. And I think I gained a bit of that anxious trait, started to worry a lot more. And to be honest, thankfully, the biggest baptism of fire to get out of that was the Stormzy gig, because it was the first thing that happened outside of lockdown. It was the first gig I had to do out of that. And I was shitting myself. I was worried so much. And it forced me to just go back into that place I was in before, where I just like, I can't control it. I just got to do the best I can. Just got to go out there and just not worry. And that was a kickstart back into that kind of headspace. So that, I've never worried about that stuff, numbers, and just try to enjoy everything about that I do. And it's like I mean, if I look at like the success or the numbers of the stuff that I've released music wise compared to some of the other bands out there, that it's like hugely different, but I've never cared, because as long as people enjoy it, it's kind of like, it's great. You know what I mean? That's kind of why you do it. I enjoy it. I like, so.
That's the thing, is that the really sad thing is that's quite unusual. Like, so many people are I get wound up in it. Like, so many people get wound, especially nowadays. It's so easy to, because like, it's so easy to measure things by numbers rather than by how you feel about something. Because you can quantify a number. You can look at 100 streams, or you can look at however many streams you've got, and that's a number on where you're at. Whereas it's much, obviously you can't, I think people latch onto it because it's like, you've got an answer to where you are in your own head, kind of.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, when money's involved, and for all of us trying to do careers in whatever area, if we talk about what we do, like internet-based media or whatever, like, numbers are important to the companies that pay you, obviously. But I just think that if you, the creator, or you, the artist, or whatever it is you do, worry about that as well, it's kind of like, it's not necessary. Just you focus on the thing that makes the companies want to work with you, or whatever, whatever that is, whether it's getting a gig or doing a video demo or working for a magazine or like whatever. I just think try not to obsess about them, because at the end of the day, you can only do as good as you can, and you put it out there, it's done. It's not in control anymore. So it's either going to be like, shit, this is sick, and it gets shared loads and people love it, or it just floats through, and over time it gradually builds, or that particular thing doesn't do it very well, but just carry on. I remember it's like, there was it's not even a really profound sounding quote, but I read it somewhere, and it's just that thing of like, if you pursue the things in life that really excite you, like make you feel good, then they just reward you more importantly further down the line. And it's, just make things work out. It's like come full circle kind of thing, because you put out positive intent and energy into something that makes you feel good, then I guess it comes back round if you focus on the good, you know. And that sounds super hippie, but it's just another way of saying
it
don't
works.
worry about the numbers.
Definitely some lessons in there for me as well. So the next one is with Sam Vallen from Caligula's Horse. I think he might be the smartest man I've had on the podcast by probably some way. No offense, everyone else. Super insightful musical conversation. Normally I veer away from the musical stuff, but he was just so interesting, and I just had to pick his brain on some stuff. So if you're a bit of a musician snob / nerd, check this one out because it's all about modes and interesting chords and things.
Well, let me give you a couple in major and minor keys just to kind of keep it spicy. So those two, I think, are really good examples. Like if you think about the I'm using scare quotes here for those not watching a video, the kind of like the Lydian chord, like using that 1 to like a major chord built on the 2 chord. It's like a brightening of the major scale, whereas that 1 to a minor 5 chord is like a kind of darkening effect, making a more kind of mournful take on a major scale. But you can do similar things in a minor scale. So here an example could be, let's say you're in the key of A minor and you want something that instead of having that typical kind of minor sound, which a lot of the time can be very like vanilla ice cream, you know, like it's sad, but it's not particularly interesting. Try grabbing a 2 chord, which is a minor chord. So in other words, you're going like A minor to B minor. And this is borrowing a chord from the Dorian mode. You get this kind of very complex, sort of a little bit more jazz voiced kind of sound. That's a pretty cool one to try out. Another one that I really like, and it's a little bit hard to use, this is a little bit more specific. So another Mixolydian change would be taking in, let's say, an A major chord, we're in like the key of A here, and using a G major chord, so like a flat 7, a major chord built on a flat 7. But I recommend trying that as a major 7 chord, so like putting the major 7 interval in there. Incredibly emotional and just, I don't know, just interesting. I'm just throwing out some that I find the most interesting here. And let me think. Okay, final one isn't a modal one, but this is something that I think every songwriter should have in their arsenal, is using a minor chord built on the 4 degree. So think like Creep is kind of, you know, this is that sound. But if you are a songwriter and, you know, you're interested in kind of borrowing chords, this, strictly speaking, you could say is being borrowed from like the parallel Aeolian mode. If you're in the key of A major, it comes from A Aeolian, a D minor built, in this case, on the 4 chord, but a minor chord rather than a major, which you'd, you know, ostensibly have in a major key. It's funny, I said that doesn't come from a mode. Of course it does. It's just quite far removed. You know, it's not like a major mode, a parallel major mode. It's a minor mode in that case. So that's 5 to try out. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you just, as a songwriter, sit down and say, okay, I'm going to dig into like the Mixolydian mode as a bunch of alternative chords to like, you know, the major built on the same key, you'll find some cool stuff that you've never found before. And I highly recommend it. So hopefully that's enough. And hopefully that wasn't too much of a ramble.
Still blows my mind. Next one is another guy that I got to meet recently. It's Joao, from all the way over from Portugal. I met him at the Bleed From Within gig in London in December 2022. Only a short one, but it's just his take on success. Again, another one on success. But I think it's an important thing that we learn how to measure properly. Hope to meet you again, Joao. It was awesome.
Success has lost this account of connection and of, am I happy doing it? And you can get doomsday like you were about it. Like, oh God, people are just going to be miserable. They're just going to take on these things that don't make them happy because they have to make money and that's it. Or you can look at it like it doesn't work. People rebel. Like you quit school to do music. I quit school too. School was music, but I just went all out on YouTube for me. And you even quit music to do something you think will make you happier even in another niche of music. So there is always hope that people will gravitate to try to do something that really makes them happy.
I'm always inspired by prolific songwriters, and Nick DePirro is certainly one of them. We spoke quite some time ago, and I really just admired his approach of just keep writing. If you get stuck, just keep writing. It doesn't matter if it's bad, just turn something out. Because I think once the cogs stop, it can be quite hard to get going again. I know that from personal experience. So yeah, here's his advice on that.
I try to look at those moments as the challenge for myself to be like, okay, this is what I want to be doing for my life. And if I get into these positions where I struggle and I can't think of something, I have to find a way out, and I have to think of something that allows me to break through this moment. And that might be like something as simple as switching guitars or changing tempo or changing, tuning, anything random, starting a song on bass instead of guitar. So I'll push myself in different scenarios that, might be initially uncomfortable for a second, but then it'll inspire something else, and whatever it is. So yeah, there are times that happens for sure. And I think that's inevitable with anybody creating anything. I think you're going to hit ruts occasionally where like it's hard to kind of naturally feel inspired, and you have to kind of like make inspiration happen. But I do think that's a real thing as far as like, I think if you get stuck, I don't think you should stop. I think a lot of people say like walk away for a couple of weeks or days or whatever. I don't think that's entirely true. I think you should still push yourself, maybe go outside for a second or something like that to like refresh your eyes, but like come back and just do it again. Like just go. It's, it's not something that should be like too comfortable. I think it should be, you should always be a little bit challenged with music. And I think, the best stuff comes from when you're cornered and you actually like have to do something that, will get you to the next point. And sometimes that's all it takes. And then sometimes literally like I'll catch myself, I'll write one part and then I erase everything else and I start from that point on or something like that. Or that part will then get me to a new section and then I delete the part that got me to that section. And now it's like, you never know what's going to happen. So I always just try to charge through those moments. But yeah, I mean, writing that much music is going to happen. I think it's easy to question yourself and overthink things and all that, get in your head about it. I do that, but I try to focus it and still power through.
Speaking of smart people, Dave Davidson from Revocation might be the most well-read, I think that's the phrase, guest that I've had. We only chatted for about 45 minutes just because that's all I could get with the record label. But he made so many interesting references to literature that I'm now interested to check out. And this is one I really enjoyed.
Art is a mirror that reflects society, right? But I think it was Bertolt Brecht that said, art is not a mirror to reflect society. Art is a hammer with which you shape society. So I thought that was a cool quote and definitely, gives maybe like more meaning behind, people's artistic outputs, right? Like, I don't know. I think speaking truth to power is a very important thing, whether you're a public figure or an artist. I mean, I know not all artists choose to touch on those subjects, but people have made the case that all art is political in some way, because depending on what part of the world you live in or what government regime you live under, you might not have the freedom to express yourself in the way that you want to. So yeah, in some maybe small way, all art is political, whether you like it or not.
Okay, here we are, the last one. Last but not least, this is Mike Malyan from Monuments talking about Star Trek and why it's important.
If you want to watch something for 40 minutes and come out feeling better, and especially seeing something that imagines the best side of humanity, Star Trek, like The Next Generation, the one with Patrick Stewart, is amazing because it'll attack some kind of humanitarian issue through metaphors of aliens and everything. It's not about the ship or the laser or the shield or the tech thing. It's all a people story, and it's all a people story tied into what would it be like if humanity were at its highest potential, where there's no money, no greed, no nothing. You've always got the person with that side of it, and then there's something, either an alien culture or an internal matter where someone is not okay or struggling in a certain way, and different Star Treks have different sides of struggles and it's always searching for that best version of yourself to attack that problem with. And that just leaves me feeling great. It's getting grittier. The newer Trek's very gritty, but it's amazing for the disadvantaged as well. Like ever since the original series, it was the first time that a woman of color was on the bridge as a senior officer, like having responsibility. That inspired people like Whoopi Goldberg, who then, they saw the character Lieutenant Uhura on TV and it made them feel like they could do it. Now we've got non-binary and transgender characters within it, which it's going to do the same thing. It's going to make someone feel like, thank you, I needed this. I needed to see someone actually be valued and have their pronouns respected, have their transitional journey be respected. It's people don't get that in life a lot, so that show does it for them. And that's where Trek for me still feels different from Star Wars. Not that Star Wars isn't great, it just doesn't quite hit that way for me, but I recommend it for that sense.
Okay, thanks so much again, guys, for checking everything out this year. It means a lot. And hopefully this time next year, this will all be so much bigger. Who knows? Maybe it won't be. Either way, I hope to just be cracking on, getting cool guests, having good conversations, making friends, building relationships, everything in between. So yeah, I hope you've all had a great 2022 and on to 2023. I still think I'm in 2020, to be honest, but there we are. See you later.